want to congratulate FedScoop on 6 years of great work here in DC. I think you just celebrated an anniversary recently, right? That's fantastic. Well, we're going to talk a little bit today about my life post-White House in taking technology to the Ebola fight. And you may ask, how can technology play a role in something like a global or a regional health crisis? And we'll talk a little bit about that. Before we talk about that, let's get started by jumping to a quick video. I'll go to the next slide for you guys. And see what life is like on the ground in West Africa right now.
It becomes day-to-day life. You get into your PPE and you go in every day and you feel very safe. I've never had a job like this ever. It's completely different. I have a healthy level of fear every day. Like, it doesn't rule my life, but you have to respect the disease. We have to be careful. You can't take risks here. There's a great need in Vaughan County. One of the reasons we set up here is because it does have such a great need, and there was nobody servicing the area. People were having to go, 4, 5, 6 hours to Monrovia. But at the moment, we get patients from as far away as 10-hour drives. Whenever our ambulance goes to pick people up, the supervisor always says, there were 20 other people there that I need to go back and get. I like the idea of the night shift doing it a lot. Okay. Yeah, it feels overwhelming sometimes, but it's not like Monrovia. It's not where you have 100 people at your front gate. I was here when Cephas came in, so the ambulance brought him. When he first got here, he was very, very sick. He was very confused, disoriented, he wandered a bit. He had some bleeding, lots of diarrhea, just like the really typical kind of Ebola things. He was one of those patients that you just kind of don't know which direction he's going to go. You don't know if he's going to survive it or not. He was just lying in bed for a while, and then one day I came to work and he was outside. And that's when you kind of know things are turning around for patients. They're outside, they're kind of socializing with the other patients. And it was actually quite a big shock, because I didn't think he was doing well. I really, really, really genuinely believe that our interventions here are helping those borderline patients. We got his negative results the other day, and when they announced it at the board, everyone was clapping for him, because it was just so exciting that he got to go. For some reason, you're sad to see them go because you've gotten so attached to them, but it's good that they're going. It's always a good day when a cured patient goes. It's turned out to be an amazing, amazing experience. I wouldn't take it back for anything. So I guess if you can say it exceeded my non-expectations.
What a way to start a day, huh? I thought I'd start off before talking about technology and Ebola by just kind of talking about Ebola itself for a few minutes. And it's probably important to start with just getting some truth out there. The first truth is you're not going to contract Ebola. It is actually a pretty hard disease to get. You have to come in direct physical contact with the bodily fluids of a person who has Ebola and is presenting Ebola. Someone who's even caught Ebola and is in what we call the dry stage, not transmitting the disease through liquids in your body, you can't actually get Ebola from that and contract Ebola from that person. Truth number two is there's not an outbreak in the United States. You know, we hear a lot of sensationalism on the news. This has actually been tempered a little bit in the last few weeks, but a lot of the early hype around just Ebola is this big crisis in the United States. My favorite social media tidbit that I saw in the last few weeks is more people have married Kim Kardashian than have contracted Ebola in the United States. And so it's not an outbreak in the United States. Ebola is a disease of fragile ecosystems. It's a disease where the health system can't control it, where you can't do effective contact tracing and have infection control measures that can get your arms around it. It is not a disease of the highly developed world like us. And in every case where we've contracted Ebola in this country, it's been controlled, as you've seen. Then truth number three, the Ebola crisis in Africa is not just a health crisis in West Africa. It's actually a global crisis. And it's a global crisis beyond health. There's actually aspects and second-order effects of a disease like this when an economy screeches to a halt, or where people stop moving goods across borders, when people in those countries, because Ebola is everything and there's just massive fear, stop immunizing their children, you suddenly have these effects that last for years afterwards. Political instability, security implications, all of this sort of stuff comes from a crisis like this that takes a nation and tips them over. And if you look at this part of Africa, their GDPs were growing at 8-9%. These were sort of the rising stars of Africa, and a crisis like this could actually put a halt to that and take them in a different direction. So the key here is that the fight is in West Africa. The way you make it not a problem in the United States, the way you fix the security problems, the economic problems, and take responsibility, as we have in the United States, to really wrapping our arms around this, is you take the fight to West Africa. And that's exactly what we did. This is the largest set of activities that the US government has ever done on a global health crisis. We've deployed more people fighting Ebola than any other thing in our past. So how are we doing that? The first thing is we've gone in country, mostly Liberia, and then we're expanding and looking at our role and our partnerships across Sierra Leone and Guinea, the other countries that are most greatly affected in West Africa. And first and foremost is we're building Ebola treatment units. That's like the one you saw in the video. This is a structure where you can keep the patients isolated, you can care for them, give them hydration, and deal with that sort of stuff. We're also building community care centers. This is helping the local communities isolate suspected patients. So if you've got someone who's presenting a fever, in Africa, there's Lassa fever, there's malaria, there's all kinds of other diseases you can catch that present very similar symptoms to Ebola. The last thing you want to do is take a patient who shows up with a fever and put them in an Ebola unit when they maybe don't have Ebola. And so getting these community care centers stood up to be the first line of defense is a key thing. The third thing, and this has proven out to be very, very important, is social activation. This is about getting the word out to citizens in these countries to help them understand, what is Ebola? How should I deal with someone who's presenting illness? How do I prevent myself from catching it my family members? How do I deal with, in a dignified way, burials of people and things like that? And this has actually been really, really effective. We've now got studies going out into the field to do some qualitative research on how effective this has been, but anecdotally we're hearing that the posters and the text messages and things that we're doing are actually helping a lot in changing behavior, which is important. Rapid response is really about our agility. What we're seeing in Liberia in particular is at a net level, data is starting to indicate that we're starting to look at leveling off the case rate, but there's pockets where it's flaring up, maybe outside of the major cities. And so we have to be very agile in our ability to go out and help deal with those and help the government of Liberia and the countries around to deal with that. And then the last point is really around safe and dignified burials. We're seeing that I think a lot of people contracting Ebola actually from dealing with their loved ones. And culturally, there's behavioral aspects where you lay hands on people, where you do other things. And what you see is the science shows that a person's actually deceased is one of the most virulent people around. And so you've got to be very careful when you're dealing with that. And so we've deployed burial teams to do safe and dignified burials. So on technology, the key here is that technology is not the solution to Ebola, but as many things we all see in government, it's part of the solution. We're approaching technology in Ebola as really what can technology do to accelerate or amplify the care we normally do, to make things more efficient, to help us make better, faster decisions, to get our arms around this in a way that maybe we wouldn't be able to without technology's help. But you also have to understand, and one of the reasons I showed that video up front is this is not like driving into Northwest DC or any part of the district. It's not going to even a town in the United States and sort of thinking about, okay, how would I bring technology to this town? You have very little cell phone coverage. You have unreliable power everywhere. Devices that you would want to put out into the field probably can't connect to the internet from where you are and need to be ruggedized. We're talking to manufacturers about if you had a tablet in an Ebola treatment unit, you'd have to be able to dip that tablet into chlorine water to get any virulent material that's on it off. And so thinking about how would technology apply itself is a whole new ball game when you're dealing with something like Western Africa. And so we have really three pillars of the way we're thinking about technology. The first pillar is point of care. And on this one, we're working on something we call PPE. This is personal protective equipment. So when you go into the Ebola zone, you actually wear a suit made of Tyvek, kind of looks like this. And you put the suit on, and then over the suit, what you typically do is you take pieces of tape that's that can block viruses, and you put tape over all the seams. You put rubber medical gloves on under it, you put the suit on, and then you put medical gloves over it, and then you tape the edges around where the seams are. And then there's typically another hood you put over this. That you don't really use the hood that's on this because it limits your ability to turn your head and see because you look into the side of the hood. So you wear a different hood. Over the entire suit, you put this heavy rubber apron. That's to add additional protection of blocking those seams that are in the front because you don't want virulent material to kind of get through those seams. And then over all of that, you put on probably a double mask. The hood typically has a mask built in. You cut a slit in it. You put this on underneath, and you put the hood over it to protect on any material coming in there. And then you put on these goggles, and you wear those goggles on top of the hood. And what that does is basically protects your body from getting any liquids from an affected patient, blood, diarrhea, sweat, anything else, vomit, from getting into any of your soft tissues around your eyes, cuts on your hands, your mouth, your nose, those sorts of things. The challenge is kind of multifold. One is this suit, when you wear it, if we had somebody go put it on, is extremely hot. It's made to block liquids from coming in. It effectively blocks liquids from going out. And so in a conditioned lab environment in the United States, where you're in like a level 4 lab dealing with viruses, it's not too bad. You can crank the air conditioning. In Africa, it's about 110 degrees in the day during the summertime, which we're approaching the summer now, or in springtime. And it's about 96% humidity in this part of the world. It's a suit you can probably wear for about 30 or 40 minutes before you start to really cook inside the suit. The second part of the challenge is the heat, the removal of the suit. Because of all those layers I just described, taking the suit off is one of the most dangerous things you can do, because if you've got material on the suit somewhere, like the edge of the glasses or the edge of the mask, when you take that off, one bump and a little of that material going into your soft tissues can actually infect you. And we think that in large part some of the health workers that have caught this, that weren't there before dealing with other aspects of health, maybe not wearing PPE, have contracted Ebola that way. Ebola is hard to get because of that you have to be in contact with the liquids, but once you get even one strain of the virus on you, doctors and scientists have told us that's enough to kind of multiply and to give you Ebola. So it's very dangerous. So there's a very complex procedure. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes to take the suit off. You do it with a fellow person. You have to dip your hands into this bleach water, do things, dip your hands in the bleach water. So the way we attack this through the technology standpoint is we launched first a maker faire. We actually said, this is an area where American ingenuity can really come into play. And so a few weeks ago, we hosted a 2-day maker faire to bring, traditional partners in, Kimberly-Clark, 3M, DuPont, the people that make these suits and innovate on tape materials like this, as well as non-traditional partners, people that do, cooling vests for race car drivers or do Under Armour, the company that does sporting equipment, to understand, okay, if we bring these two worlds together and have them sit around tables for 2 days, what can we get out of that as far as reimagining the suit to be more Ebola ready? And so on the right-hand side in the picture there, you can actually see an example. This is Travis Good, the guy that's standing there, and the woman's actually from 3M. Travis Good is actually a writer and I think an editor for Make magazine. Many of you probably know. And what we did is we actually we did a tabletop exercise and went to a maker space and had them reimagine. So in this case, you can actually see that the Ebola suit has the seam on the back versus the front. It has double layers that you can actually overlap, so you don't have to put the tape on. That eliminates the heavy rubber apron. It eliminates a lot of the problems you get with material coming into the front of you. And you'll notice those gray tabs and the zipper pulls are all about, once you've cleansed your hands, can you reach in and pull the suit off without having to touch the outside of the suit, which is a key thing. And so once we left this 2-day session, we married up the manufacturers with the people in the health world who do testing and certification on these devices with people that would procure them, like the Department of Defense and the Centers for Disease Control and HHS, are now working together on looking at these ideas. We also launched a grand challenge at ebolagrandchallenge.net. This is asking American innovators to pile on and give us even more ideas. And we've done this on the OpenIDEO platform and have, I think, broken all the records on OpenIDEO from an idea standpoint, with hundreds of ideas coming in. In the next week or so, we're going to have a bake-off where people come in and present their ideas and have a panel of health judges tell us what are the best ideas from there. The second pillar of point of care, and I'll go quickly through the rest of these slides, is rapid diagnostics. To actually do a test for Ebola, you have to draw a vial of blood, send it off to a lab to do this PCR test that was developed and is widely used in the medical community. It's like this giant copying machine-sized machine that you stick the vial of blood in. It runs a chain reaction test and then will tell you if it's Ebola positive or negative. The challenges with that, of course, are these machines are expensive. You put them out into labs. You can't take them to the front lines. You have to draw a vial of blood and run them back. So we've got a pretty good track record with PCR. We're getting about 24-hour turnaround. But even in 24 hours, you can infect other people. And so if you're not controlling isolation, you're taking all this. And so our approach here is to just push the science community and work side by side with them on rapidly innovating around a diagnostic test that's field ready. We want an espresso machine-sized machine. You can go out and take a pinprick of blood or a urine strip or things like that to get this back. And so we are making incredible progress, and the community is making incredible progress on this, on getting certifying new devices, and we're giving them access to test material and subjects in the field to streamline that. The second pillar is around communications. So we're working on crisis communications. This is, do we have base level ability for health workers to talk to health workers across the community? The second is looking at the ICT sector in this region. If you really only have 2G connectivity, and we hear stories about people climbing to the top of an anthill or a tree and holding their phone up into the air, and so they can get data downloaded on it, and then they go down and they can send an email. Sometimes texting takes about 24 hours for the text to send and things like that. You don't have the ability to do synchronous communications with people in the field. So we're looking at, can we bolster this? ICT is important not only for dealing with the crisis, but also for the second order effects. As the economy starts to come back, as the health infrastructure starts to build back, as we get security and safety kind of to be more pervasive and to help build an information economy in this part of the world, which is, like I said, an incredible emerging market. ICT will be at the center of that. And so we're working with the local carriers and the governments on bolstering that. And then the third is around social activation, using behavioral science and technology to get the word out to people. The last pillar that we're doing is around data. And our 4 pieces of data are really impact data. This is gathering data to understand if I build an ETU, if I deploy a burial team, if I do this or I do that, what kind of impact is that having? Right now, we have a lot of people collecting data, but don't have a lot of visibility into how that data is having, is telling us what's happening on the ground. We get a lot of things happening, but don't get a lot of coordination and harmonization across that data. Same with logistical data. This is how many PPE suits are in this or that medical clinic. What's our levels of bleach and chlorine? Are there extra beds in certain places? Research data is really around epidemiological data. Can I understand more about this disease? Can I build a capacity in these countries to learn more about disease? So in the future, if something like this crops up, do I have the ability to do gene sequencing or get our arms around this? Testing rapid diagnostics I put into this category, as well as we're working with the countries on looking at electronic health records. And can you establish more of a robust electronic health records to understand which kids are vaccinated and look at these kind of all the portfolio of disease and how that relates to it. The last category is big data and modeling. This is taking cell phone records and climate data and population maps and everything and layering them on top of each other to really understand, can we learn more about the way disease moves in a country? Can we predict movement in a way that would tell us where to build that next treatment unit or deploy a front team, which is key. You can see the picture there. We've actually got a guy out contact tracing. He's talking to someone that says, okay, you've got Ebola. Who else have you talked to? And they're just doing that on a little piece of paper. So how can you help? Really the 3 ways you could help is, first and foremost, there are funding needs out there. This is a very expensive proposition. I, as the US government, can't ask for people to give money, but I can send you a website to look at options if you're interested in doing that. CIDI.org, it's actually run by USAID, connects to people that are doing work on the ground out there. Donate your time and expertise. You saw that at the end of the video. We're kind of gathering people up. In the Maker Faire, we really kind of leave all our business cards at the door and all come in and just say, we're Americans, let's work on this project together. And then contributing to the Grand Challenge. We've got ideas about suits or other ways of providing care, EbolaGrandChallenge.net. And the last thing you can do, and this is kind of in that context of the hype and the news and the isolation of health workers and things like that. The way we stop this is going to attack it in West Africa, and those people that step up and raise their hand and say, I'll go to West Africa, I'll go deal with patients, I'll go do this. Those are some of the greatest Americans out there. And here's a snapshot of just a few of those people that are on the USAID team, let alone the hundreds of people in the US military or the private sector, Doctors Without Borders, and the other nonprofits that are going out and fighting this every single day. So if you ever meet one of those people, give them your thanks, because they are making the world a much better place. Thank you.